Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you by the Gallery Bar, Book, and Games. Get your game on at the Gallery Bar, Book, and Games at Ocean Casino Resort. Go to the Gallery, go to Ocean, go for the win. For more information, visit theoceanhc.com. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. We are live at the Gallery Bar, Book, and Games today and every Monday. Mike Gill, Ryan Rothstein, producer Danny Ryan on site. Josh Henning is back at the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. And right now, for another edition of Football at 4, we got football action. The Eagles and the Ravens Saturday night. They talked about it this morning on the Inside the Birds podcast. And one of the hosts, of course, is Geoff Mosher for a Mosher Monday. Football is back. Mosher, what's up, my man?
Hey, guys. It was nice to see a little football back, right? Wasn't it?
It was, and the Phillies complied by crapping themselves and let us switch over to the Eagles on Saturday night. That game was so out of hand that we were able to check out some birds. So let's see what you saw. I want to start with Jalen Carter and kind of get your take on that first play of the game, and then forget the first play of the game. How about the whole, the full resume for him in that game on Saturday night? I mean, obviously, if you watch that first play, you would say, whoa, this guy's something different. But what did you see overall from him?
Yeah, I mean, power, strength, the violent hands is something we've talked about a lot on Inside the Birds, where he just – and normally hand usage is something that a rookie defensive tackle in the NFL can be slow to adjust to. It's a big kind of refined technique type of thing that he just seems to be able to be ahead of the curve on. And then a lot of that is just because he's also got naturally just country strong hands that help him out in that department. And he's also got a good first step. I mean, he was the top defensive prospect in the draft. He showed you that he has a great combination of power, speed, hand usage, a plan, knows what he wants to do out there. Shouldn't be surprising. I mean, that's why he was considered the top prospect. So, and, we've been reporting ever since OTAs, Mike and Ryan, that he's come in. We know about the baggage. We know about the legal stuff. We know about the pro day where he was overweight. But ever since he's come in, we've heard he's done a good job. He's been coachable. He's not caused any issues. So far it's been a really good story for them and for him. And you just hope to see that continue. He's worked his way up. I think he started camp. He was on the second team. Milton Williams on the first team. I'm sure as camp goes along, you're going to see him getting more first-team reps. And he, as long as he continues on this trajectory, he'll be a contributor, a starter, and the guy who he most sort of profiles favorably to is an Ndamukong Suh, right? A guy who could do both, could rush the passer, stop the run, was considered country strong, played almost violently, and, I don't want to make light of Suh's past history of doing things that were not good on the field. He corrected that after a few bad early years. But, with Carter, it's not like you're getting a Javon Hargrave 15-sack guy. At least you don't expect that early on. But he's way more just a one-dimensional like Hargrave. I mean, he's probably closer to what you get from Fletcher Cox earlier in his career, which is a combination of being a really good pass rusher and a good run stopper as well.
Geoff Mosher with us looking back. Obviously there's a lot of expectations there. He's the top 10 pick. What about the other Georgia guy, Mun Smith, the flashes that he showed on Saturday night? Give me some takeaways on Smith, because I think what his role materialized.
Yeah, and what I thought was fascinating about his role was that he played a decent amount of special teams, a lot of special teams too. And I think that when you see what he can do on the edge as far as his edge speed, and then you're able to put him in situations on special teams, kickoff and punt. I think the challenge for the coaches early on will be finding the right spots to put him on the field on the defense. He has tremendous speed on the edges, but they have that also with Hassan Reddick, and they've got, other guys. They got Brandon Graham. They got Josh Sweat. So they're going to have to figure out a way to get him on the field in pass-down situations. The one thing with Nolan Smith and teams around the league passed on him early is because while he is a very physical player and a capable run defender, they did feel that his body size and frame at the NFL level was going to prohibit him from being, especially early on, like a three-down lineman, right? Someone you don't want him out on the field necessarily in run situations because he can get swallowed up by a double team and maybe not be able to fight through it the way a 250-pound defensive end or 260-pound defensive end would be. So they've got to figure out a way to get him on the field in good situational pass rush situations. But because they're not playing him 3 downs or 70% of the game, that enables them to be able to use him on special teams if that's what they're going to do.
Mosh, Eli Ricks, I mean, a pick six, he certainly came onto the scene here in preseason game number 1, albeit late in a preseason game. Is there a story here, or is this a story that's going to be forgotten about when September rolls around?
Probably a little bit of both, Ryan, to be honest with you. I mean, he did say that his nickname in college was Pick Six Ricks, and he did go he entered Alabama with a whole lot of hype around him, so it's not surprising that he's in the NFL. You'll see that you've seen that on a couple of guys the Eagles have really went to, and especially at that position. Greedy Williams is another guy who was like this just phenomenal recruit coming out of, I believe, Scottsdale, Arizona. Goes to LSU, was supposed to be the next great thing. And, he was okay. He was not the next great thing. He wound up being a second-round pick, I believe, of the Browns. And he's trying to kind of come into his own here with the Eagles and hasn't really been a star of camp. But I think what it shows, Ryan, is that the Eagles have taken this approach where at cornerback, with having 2 veterans, that they're going to try to get as many young guys in. If they don't draft them, then it's going to be rookie free agents, guys like Josh Jobe, Goodrich, Ricks. They signed Greedy Williams. They did draft Zach McPherson. They're really trying hard at that position to develop some young talent, and I hope that they hit in one of these avenues, right? And right now, while Eli Ricks had the standout game, they're clearly more impressed with Josh Jobe. He's their number 3 outside corner. You've got Bradbury, you've got Slay. If one of those 2 guys got hurt and they had to play an NFL game tomorrow, Josh Jobe is going to be that starter on the outside. And this is another guy who was an undrafted free agent out of Bama last year. They're really pleased with his development. I feel like he's the story now more because of his consistency and his development than a splash play from Eli Ricks. But it is notable that Eli did that, and he'll obviously have more snaps coming up here in the joint practices and preseason games to show that maybe that wasn't just a flash in the pan.
Yeah, another name just to throw your way, and you can elaborate, Mosher. Sidney Brown, someone who's just seems to have that type of an edge to him. Once again, very little sample, but from what we've read and researched on him, and then you can elaborate. But a guy that maybe can wiggle his way into a rotation, or a guy that the Eagles can rely on if they need to rely on him. Talk about Sidney Brown a little bit more.
Yeah, so when the Eagles drafted Sidney Brown, Ryan, they knew exactly what they were getting. They were getting a safety who played box in college, auditioned himself at the Senior Bowl as a guy trying to play the post, trying to cover a little bit more. And that was really the first time he was asked to do it. And they liked what they saw just from an athleticism standpoint. And you see that. I think the most obvious thing about Sidney Brown, not only is he as intelligent, not a great kid character, but in college, and now you've seen it here with the Eagles, is that he's got a relentless motor. He's got juice, right? You watch him on the field, and you can see that he gets to the ball with closing speed and pursuit better than anybody else that they have at that position. And that's going to be his card-carrying trait throughout his first year, is that even if he's making a mistake, Ryan, he's going to make that mistake at 100%. And he's going to make plays like in a preseason and get to the ball and show you and wow you. And then there are going to be times where he overruns the play, he over-pursues, he misses a tackle, because guys that aggressive and that fast, they have to learn the NFL speed. And then are also going up against, Pro Bowl wide receivers, Pro Bowl corners and tight ends. I'm sorry, not corners, running backs and tight ends who are gonna make a move and make him miss, right? So he's got to learn all that as he adjusts to playing in a different style of defense. But the athletic traits are there. And we have a guy who does work for us at InsideTheBirds.com named Sam Finkel. He specializes in analytics. And he noted that Sidney Brown made 8 tackles in 41 snaps, which is a per tackle rate of close to 20%. And if you go to InsideTheBirds.com, you can see the story on where that measures up against all NFL safeties in preseason week 1. Little spoiler, it's number 1. So, but there's more in the story. There's a little bit more in the story with context to that. But the guy can be a tackling machine. But I know that how fans are, right? There's going to probably be times where you get frustrated because in college he was known for missing a tackle here and there, and he's not going to be able to all the time cover a tight end or a slot receiver single coverage. But the coach's job is to make sure you're not putting him in that situation. The coach's job is to make sure you're putting him in a situation where he's best to succeed. And just like Hassan Reddick last year, every once in a while you had to see him drop back, and you're like, but more often than not, they put Hassan Reddick in a position to succeed, and he did succeed.
All right, Geoff, I guess one of the interesting storylines between now and the start of the season will be linebacker. What did we learn about Zach Cunningham, Nick Morrow, Miles Jack, Christian Ellis from Saturday night?
Yeah. We learned that the Eagles have a lot of guys competing for a spot next to Nakobe Dean, and that competition is going to play itself out over the next 2 or 3 weeks. And, I've said all along, I think when healthy, Zach Cunningham, because of his size and his length, he's 6'3". For an Eagles linebacker to be 6'3", when in the classroom or in the meeting room, all the other linebackers must look at him like you're looking up at somebody like, whoa, like what's that, right? Because most of their linebackers are 5'10", 5'11", 6'1" at most. Christian Ellis has some decent size to him, and he can run too. And again, they're happy with Christian Ellis' development, and he's certainly in the mix. So I don't want to slam the door on Christian Ellis or anybody else. I just feel like when all is said and done, Zach Cunningham, if healthy, and if he's still what he's been, which is a tackling machine in the league, will probably be that guy opposite Nakobe Dean on first down, on short yardage when they're defending against the run. But there's a whole lot that's got to work itself out between now and then.
All right, Geoff, when you watch the Eagles aesthetically on defense, did you take was there anything different about Sean Desai's defense that jumped off to you that you're like, okay, there's a new wrinkle, or this looks a little different?
You didn't see the traditional, five-man front that they showed last year, which was like nose tackle, 2 defensive tackles flanking the nose, and then 2 overhangs in that five-man front. I think they played more times I saw 4 defensive linemen with an overhang, which is a little bit like 4 guys handed the dirt, 1 overhang, which is what they did 2 years ago when they had, I guess, Jamar Avery was the only overhang player they would use on first and second down. But I don't know that was specific, intentional, or if that was just trying something out. I think last year in the first preseason game they did the same thing. So I don't want to make too much of it.
Geoff, on the offensive side of the ball, let's jump over there. Not as many storylines, but still the running back room. No Gainwell on Saturday night. Should we read into that? Does he have this position, or was there another reason why Gainwell didn't play and other guys got the opportunity on Saturday night?
Yeah, this preseason has been a shocker to me. First of all, there's nothing. We joked in the podcast about how, 10 years ago, a preseason game was pretty formulaic, right? The first preseason game, your starting quarterback will go maybe a series, maybe 2, depending if he's young, and then you get your backup and your third stringer, then your fourth stringer, right? We're watching this game, and we see Tanner McKee get in before Ian Book. It's whoa, that wouldn't have been the case 5 or 6 years ago. Usually the incumbent at least gets in there first, and then the Ravens go and throw Ty Huntley in, their normal backup quarterback late in the game. It was all very screwy to me. So I was a little surprised to see both Penny and Swift in the game, but then you think maybe they need to work. You've got all these running backs. You can't just shelve them all. So I thought Nick Sirianni did an interesting job of explaining that he wanted to get those 2 guys work. And then next game, the PR staff not jokingly, but they listed all 5 as first, second, third team, all hyphenated their names there on the depth chart. So there's no one person who's supposed to be the guy at the moment. They're just cycling in and them out and getting them work. And of course, with spring practices starting tonight, I don't think that they wanted to overwork anybody. So,
what's the running back room going to look like, Geoff Mosher, when it's all said and done? What's the depth chart look like?
I'm pretty good insider, Ryan, but if I knew that one, because that's
you wouldn't be talking to us.
Already know. I know. It just assumes the coaches already know. Look, you saw how dynamic DeAndre Swift was with the ball in his hand, right, as a runner and a receiver, and that's what he's going to bring to this offense. And the question is he going to be relegated to a guy, who's just catching passes here and there and screens and getting 3 to 4 carries, or because they're afraid of too much work, or are they going to give him like a really decent shot to take the ball 15, 16 times as far as touches? Yeah. That remains to be seen. But he's got to be a part of the offense because of what he can do, what they gave up to get him. Kenny Gainwell's the incumbent. He's had a nice camp. I think he's going to get his opportunity as well. Rashad Penny, Trey Sermon, like we can we're talking about names of guys who are playing well, who the coaches like, and it's got to shake itself out. I just know this: they can't keep 5 running backs.
Yeah, no, that's the one thing we do know.
They could do what Tampa did on the depth chart and just say, or.
Yeah, that was pretty funny, too.
They had, for those of you who are out there, they put on the depth chart that the starting quarterback was Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask. So they don't have a decision. They're just kind of flipping a coin at this point. The Eagles essentially did it with all 5 guys. It's either Kenny Gainwell or
right. dot.
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
And the funny thing is, it's like, is Boston Scott really, who's crazy enough, I think Boston Scott is like the highest paid running back on the 53 right now, or on the roster right now. But he's been a really good role player, and he's been reliable. But if all things are considered, how does he make the team when you have those other 4 guys ahead of him, and you can't really keep that many? It's sort of mind-boggling. He can return kicks, and that's been important. But that's been also de-emphasized in the league, and they've used Rashad Penny in that role as well. So I feel like this one's going to be difficult for the Eagles, but at the end of the day, we say that, and are they really worried that if they don't keep one of these guys, that they won't be able to bring him back on the practice squad anyway? Who knows?
The backup quarterback has been pretty valuable for the Eagles franchise in particular in recent years, Moshe. So what have you seen out of Marcus Mariota that you've liked or maybe not so much?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that will help Marcus Mariota, and it's already started to show a little bit, and I think will probably continue to, was when the Eagles signed Josh Andrews. Because Josh Andrews is a interior offensive lineman who has played guard and center. And before his arrival here, with Cam Jurgens playing at right guard, they were having Brett Toth play center. And that guy was snapping the ball over the head of the court of Mariota, left, right, and center. So no pun intended. So it was not a good situation for Marcus, who's A, trying to acclimate himself into this new team, B, has fewer snaps than most backup quarterbacks in the league because the Eagles, for the first 10 days, only practiced once every other day, right? They already had the fewest amount of OTA practices. I think that's got to be difficult on a guy like Marcus, who's coming in here with no real familiarity with the coaching staff. I mean, the only thing that is familiar to him is Olamide Zaccheaus, right? And he didn't even play the other night. So I think having a actual center be able to snap him the ball will help a little bit. But on his end, I think you'd like to see him, even though we can see that he's a dynamic runner, in the preseason, in practices here, you want to see him be a more dynamic thrower of the football. There was one play that I think symbolized how he's been since the start of last year, where he was just trying to throw it into the flats to a running back and almost threw it into the stands, right? I mean, it was just so far away. It reminded me when Carson Wentz was really struggling in his third year as the Eagles quarterback. So he's got to get some things together. I do think the change of center will help him, but he certainly needs to sort of get his rhythm and his timing and his accuracy down because, as you mentioned, Ryan, the backup quarterback has been a really important person for the Eagles in the past. And the one thing you could say about whether it was Foles or most recently Gardner Minshew, right, when they would step in, even if they didn't win, they would either have a high accuracy or they would hit their open targets for the most part. And Mariota has really struggled since the start of last year at times, just hitting guys who are open.
All right, Moshe. Well, joint practices tonight and tomorrow, and then the game on Thursday. So we'll start to get a lot more information about where this team is in these joint practices. Almost more tonight and tomorrow than we did on Saturday night. And, of course, you can get that during football at 4 with the guys here from InsideTheBirds.com and the Inside the Birds podcast. Adam's here tomorrow, and Geoff will be back on Wednesday to get you ready for the Eagles and the Browns all week long. Look at that, football every day this week. You got live joint practices tonight, tomorrow, and, of course, Thursday night you can listen to the Eagles and Browns right here on 97.3 ESPN. Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. You can listen to the podcast and listen to their reaction to the Eagles' loss to the Baltimore Ravens. All right, Moshe, we will catch up with you on Wednesday.
Yeah, my friend, I look forward to it. I'll be at the joint practice tomorrow, too, so I'll have a lot to tell you when we talk Wednesday.
Very good, very good. We're looking forward to that. And the Eagles, of course, Thursday night here. And then they play the Colts next Thursday.